Today I'll be talking about the most important factor in employee engagement. Gallup says that only about 30% of employees are actively engaged. 20% are actively disengaged, which means that they're actually sabotaging the workplace. It's not just that they're not contributing fully, but they're actually sabotaging efforts, creating discord among other employees, and doing things that are unethical and in some cases illegal. 70% of employees are not fully engaged. And this is really important for a variety of reasons. But one of the most important reasons might be this one. 30% are engaged, 100% are being paid. That's a lot of money going to people who really aren't doing their job. So why aren't they engaged? Well, stress has a direct impact on employee engagement. Employees who experience low stress have increased happiness and increased success. Employees who have high stress have more illnesses and failure, but it's not the job that determines how much stress an employee experiences. It's how the employee's mind functions, how the employee perceives the events that happen at work and in the other areas of their life, because you can't separate the person after hours from the person at work. The old paradigm did this. We tried to think that people were employees while they were at work, like machines, and they could just turn off anything that wasn't work related. But we know better, and I think we always did. We just kind of wished it was that way. Employees' subjective perceptions and evaluations at work influence their feelings of emotional exhaustion in a wide range of occupations. So, subjective perception, that means that it's how they feel about it. It's not really about what is there, it's about how they feel about it. And that is a critical factor, and it's where the solution lies. Insecurity, low self-esteem, and consistently low emotional states contribute significantly to low employee engagement. If somebody doesn't feel secure, they don't feel comfortable about their job. They may think it's going to go away. They may think they may be sent away. If they have low self-esteem, they're more likely to feel insecure. And low emotional, low emotional states come from a variety of reasons. But low core self-evaluations, which includes low self-esteem, is a major contributing factor to low emotional states. If your employee is usually happy, she'll usually focus on the positive aspects of a new situation. You know that employee. There's a big announcement at work about major changes, and they're seeing the benefit of it. But then there's that employee who's frustrated all the time. They have a frustrating commute, maybe they have a frustrating boyfriend, maybe they have kids that are frustrating, or their children's teachers are frustrating, their car breaks down and frustrates them a lot. They're just frustrated a lot. And when that big announcement is made, they're frustrated because their brain says, oh, you like to be frustrated because clearly you're choosing your emotional state and you choose to be frustrated frequently. So here, focus on this aspect of this big change because it will help you maintain your frustrated emotional state. And then you've got that insecure employee, and they're going to look for the threats in that big announcement. And they're going to find some. They're going to perceive things that don't even mean they're threatening, but they're going to perceive them that way because our brains create backstories that support our chronic emotional state. And then you have that employee who's angry a lot. And they're just going to find something to be angry about this big change. This big change could be a great opportunity for them, but they're going to find something in it that keeps their emotional state angry. They're going to blame it for their anger in some way, shape, or form. So, the construct of core self evaluations has been recognized as one of the most significant dispositional predictors of job satisfaction. Now, what do I mean by a construct? Well, I'll get to that in just a minute, but core self evaluations, what someone thinks about themselves, their self esteem, their beliefs about their own ability to do a good job, account for between 27 and 40% of job satisfaction. And job satisfaction has a direct linkage to success and to employee engagement. So that's a huge piece. That's the number one factor it's the one factor that has the highest percentage impact on employee engagement. And it's the factor that none of the traditional employee engagement methodologies try to do anything about. So this is what I mean by a factor. And you've got this handout because it's very complicated. And I'm not going to go into all the details of all this graph. But if you look across the top, those are high-level factors that impact an employee's performance at work and their level of engagement. So the very top blue line is the high-level factor. And then just under that are factors that make up. Those factors combined together are what like a composite of those create the higher level factor. So a core self-evaluation includes an internal locus of control. I'll talk about that in a minute. Healthy self-esteem, self-efficacy. In other words, they feel like they can do their job, and emotional stability. So that high core self-evaluation accounts for 27 to 40% of job satisfaction. And look what's there: self-esteem, the belief that you can do a job, emotional stability, and an internal locus of control. All of those are psychological factors. Now, let's look at resilience, which is the next high-level factor. Notice that it has an internal locus of control and healthy self-esteem, which are two factors that are part of high core self-evaluations. Resilience is one of the top three factors that's critical for leaders at the top. It's important for everybody, but when you get to the top, it's even more important. Now, psychological capital, look at that. Well, resilience is a factor. They've got it as a low-level factor, but resilience really should be broken down into internal locus of control, healthy self-esteem, and optimism. And then you've got hope and the self-efficacy. So psychological capital, which is being independently verified as an important factor in employees. It's one of the most critical factors for success. Has a lot of overlay with high core self-evaluations. Now, a growth mindset is a person who believes that they have the ability to learn and adapt, whereas a fixed mindset thinks, oh, I'm this intelligent and I've got to prove and protect that stance. A growth mindset isn't as unhappy if they don't know something because they know that they can learn. And it's an important factor if you want your employee to, hem pairs of pants all day long for 40 years. They don't really need a growth mindset. But if you want them to learn and grow in the organization, if you want them to be adaptable when new technology comes in, when changes are going on, they have to have a growth mindset. Okay, happiness is also highly correlated with employee engagement. And we saw just a minute ago that if somebody's generally happy and a big change comes, their brain is automatically going to find things they like about that big change. Well, let's look at the factors: internal locus of control, healthy self-esteem, optimism. Right there you have resilience. Metacognitive skills, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. It's basically using your brain in intelligent and skill-based ways. Hope or better? Well, if you're optimistic and you have metacognitive skills, you're going to be hope or better. Priority happy, what does that mean? Does that mean, oh, I don't want to do anything but have fun? No, it means that if you're in a conversation with someone, you're not trying to prove you're right. You're trying to have a good relationship with that person. And if that means digging deeper to find some synergy and find some common ground, you're willing to do it because you're not in the conversation to prove who's right. Positive habits of thought. Those are habits of thought that lead to more positive perspectives. And then just self-awareness, which partially is awareness of how you feel. And I'm going to talk about that some more. Now, psychological flexibility, the last high-level factor on here, it's very closely related to psychological capital, but they're not defining it exactly the same in the literature, but both of them are rising stars when it comes to factors that they're saying impact employee engagement. And psychological flexibility is the ability to roll with the punches. It's related to resilience, and you can see that with the internal locus of control. But it's more adaptive, deliberate, conscious, adapting to changing circumstances. Whereas resilience, if you have an internal locus of control, healthy self-esteem, and optimism, your resilience is pretty much on autopilot. Metacognitive skills you still have the autopilot helping you, but the metacognitive skills make you more adaptable and more flexible. So you've got the handout. You can see underneath in the outcomes, you can see all sorts of wonderful things that employers want from their employees. And then if you go down to the very bottom, outcomes that are the same for all high-level constructs. Better physical health, better mental health, better behavioral health. What's behavioral health? Drinking, drugs, exercising, getting adequate sleep, better pro-health choices. What's that? Well, it could be wearing a condom. It could be wearing your seatbelt. It could be not drinking and driving, and then lower stress because you perceive things as lower stress. So all of these little numbers next to these are the research. They're in the book that I pulled this out of. Empowered employees become engaged employees. And I think if you go on Amazon, you can see that part of it without having to buy the book if you want to go look at the underlying research. And so that's why that high core self-evaluation is so important to employee engagement. So you saw external locus of control was consistent across the top. But look at this. The average millennial college student in the 2000s had more external control beliefs than 80% of the college students in the early 60s. Now, external is not what you want. You want the internal control beliefs. And this trend is continuing. More people are perceiving that they don't have control. And that is contributing mightily to the mental health epidemic in the country. Employee mental health, 18% suffer from anxiety every year. Over 10% suffer from depression every year. And 20% suffer from anger issues. Now, just think about one factor here. There's a lot. Well, I'll tell you four. All of these things indicate lower levels of emotional, they're not feeling good. They're not feeling happy. And happiness and stress have an inverse relationship. So happiness goes up, stress goes down. Happiness goes down, stress goes up. Well, when stress goes up, which it is in all these situations, cognitive abilities go down. Our very ability to think decreases. Our immune function decreases. our central nervous system function decreases, and our digestive function decreases. So not only is this mental health, it's physical health. It's all interwoven. You can't undo either one. And if somebody's dealing with illnesses because of high stress, they're not going to be as engaged because they're going to be thinking about their diabetes. They're going to be thinking about their obesity. They're going to be thinking about their indigestion. They're not going to be as engaged in work when they're distracted by those health issues. If you want to improve employee engagement, the right target is the employee's mindset. Change that goes directly to mindset is usually resisted. So that's why I use a back door. And it's a really great back door, and it's almost always unlocked. And even if it is locked, I can usually get it unlocked. And once you get in there, then everybody wants to feel better. So it works because they feel better when they use these techniques. So the traditional efforts ignore individual psychology. Emotional exhaustion is frequently a precursor to burnout. And exhaustion, and when you're happy, you're energized, you're energetic. When you're sad, you don't have energy. And so you can see that happy, energized, engaged. Unhappy, not energized, exhausted. And then what happens? Job performance declines, which can create a negative spiral because now they're getting heat from the boss about not doing a good job, or maybe they're beating themselves up about not doing a good job. So then it gets worse. Organizational citizenship behavior goes down. This can manifest in dozens of hundreds, thousands of different ways. It can be not being nice to your coworkers. It can be being unethical. It can be being thieving, stealing from the employer. And it can be not being as nice to customers. If it's a salesperson where ethics are involved in the sales process, they may make shortcuts. There's all sorts of factors that come into play with this organizational citizenship behavior. Customer service is worse. Customers like dealing with happy people. When they're dealing with unhappy people, they don't like it as much, and if the employee is incivil to them or to a coworker, you may never see that customer again. Increases in absenteeism and turnover. Well, the absenteeism, part of it's the mental health, but also I just already talked about the physical health issues. Turnover, people think that the grass is greener somewhere else, not realizing they're taking themselves with them. So they're more likely to leave in the hopes of being happier somewhere else. And then I already talked about the physical health risks. And like with the low emotional state, people who are positively focused have a 50% lower risk of developing heart disease, all else being equal. That's huge. Heart disease is the #1 cause of death in the world. 33% of people die from a heart disease. And it cuts the risk right in half. Okay, so let's say somebody has a Harvard education. You'd think they'd be happy, right? Because they've got all those advantages. You'd think they'd do a good job. But that's not what happens. If they're positively focused, if they have good self-esteem, you get what you expect from that Ivy League education. But if they're negatively focused, if they have low self-esteem, they do not gain the advantages that you would expect from that background. They barely make a difference when someone has low core self-evaluations. And remember, self-evaluations are perceptual. They are not about whether the person has skills. They're about whether the person perceives they have skills, whether the person perceives they have value and worth. It's not about what is, it's about what they perceive to be. So most of the things that we think are because of our habits of thought. We think about 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of those thoughts are not thoughtful. Most of them happen on autopilot. So if you have unhealthy habits of thought, they can trap your brain into unhealthy patterns. Now, this is unhealthy habits of thought. I could have 15 slides of healthy habits of thought. So I don't have those, but I'm going to show you how to know what's healthier for you. So a decade ago, new research came out that has completely turned the old belief and understanding about emotions on its head. So for a long time, researchers in emotions wondered why we couldn't directly control emotions. And they finally have figured out that we can't control emotions because the purpose of emotions is to control us. And just hang with that for a minute and you'll get more clarity in a minute. So emotions are a feedback system to facilitate behavior, learning, and control. And if we could control them just because we wanted to feel differently, then they wouldn't serve that function. So basically, emotions direct us toward self-actualization, which is fulfilling our best potential, and away from danger. It's like when you're driving down the highway and there's bumps on the road if you get over. Your emotions are like that. They're helping you get where you want to go. And the problem is we've been taught to misinterpret our emotions. And the new science gives us the information we need to interpret emotions accurately. So emotions are a feedback system. Well, what's a feedback system? Well, your eyes are literally reading light waves and interpreting them. You're getting feedback from those light waves. Your ears are getting feedback from sound waves. Your sense of touch, your sense of taste, all of it, they're all feedback systems. Well, your emotions are the same thing. There's two reasons why this took so long for us to understand. Emotions are such an integral part of our decision-making process. We don't even realize how much. And it's only been recently. Researchers, you remember, does everybody know Spock? Yeah. Do you think it'd be great to be able to make decisions like Spock? To be able to turn your emotions completely off and just make rational decisions? Well, guess what? There's people who've had either brain illnesses and brain injuries who cannot sense their emotions. They can't decide what to have for lunch. Our emotions inform our decisions so much that when we don't have them, we literally struggle to make basic decisions. But they've been there all of our life. And one of the filters that helps us notice things is a change filter, that when things change, but we've always had emotions. Now, they were changing, but they were always responding to every thought we thought. And so people didn't really realize how much information we're getting from emotions. And now the researchers are beginning to really understand that. So the reality is that behavior pursues emotional outcomes. What does this mean? This means that the reason you do something is you think you will feel better if you do it than if you don't. And the reason you don't do some things that you don't do is because you think you'd feel worse if you did them. The other day, I wanted to have this sweet dessert with some chocolate sauce on it, but then I remembered how I felt the next day after I had that before. And even though I really wanted it, I didn't want to feel bad afterwards. And so I didn't have it because my behavior is based on what I think is going to feel best to me. And so is yours. Everybody's is. When we do things we should do, we do them because we think that we'll feel better if we do them than if we didn't do them. Even if it's something that we want to do or something we don't want to do. It's about how do we think we're going to feel. And so emotions guide our behavior because we pursue what's going to feel good. So basically, it's very, very simple. If you've ever played that little game when you were a child or had your children play it, where you hid something and you gave them hints when they got closer. Oh, you're getting warmer. You're hot, hot, hot now, to help them find the hidden object. Well, your emotions do that. If it feels good, you're getting warmer. If it's a hell yes, nothing can stop you, you're really hot. You're really on track. You're really going towards actualizing your full potential. If it doesn't feel good, you're getting colder. If you have that sense of, oh, I really don't want to do this, you're forcing yourself to do something, you are not on your path. Now, it may be that what you need to do is look at it differently, but the way you're looking at it in that moment, it's not on your path. You're not lined up with it. So that's basically, it's really that simple. Now, there's a whole lot of ways techniques and tools you can use to reappraise situations so that you feel better. But just knowing that trying to feel good and trying to find a way to feel better about a situation is good for you, then that helps you decide how to look at different situations. So, in any given moment, your senses are collecting huge, you've heard the term big data, right? So, your senses are collecting all this data, and your conscious mind does not have the capacity to deal with that big data. So, it goes through a filtering process in the unconscious mind that it's below our level of awareness. So we really don't know what's being sorted. And psychologists call part of it cognitive biases. I call them filters because a bias has a negative connotation, and a filter can help you or hinder you depending on how it's programmed. So all this big data comes in, and then based on your programming, the way your specific brain is programmed to process information, a very small amount comes into your conscious awareness. Well, there's some pretty interesting things here. If you don't believe it's possible for you to get a great job and you're reading the newspaper, you're skimming the ads, you're when that information goes in and is filtered because it's inconsistent with your belief, your brain, which the job of the brain is to confirm and interpret reality according to our existing beliefs, your brain filters that information about that great job right out. You won't even see the ad. You change your beliefs about being able to find a great job, you'll see it like that because your brain is filtering out stuff that's inconsistent with your beliefs. So I said there's 186 cognitive biases. There's a lot of different filters, but there's 4 that make a huge difference in how you feel every day, how much stress you feel, how your relationships go, your health, everything is impacted by these. So all this information from your senses gets put into this funnel, and then it gets filtered through your beliefs and your expectations, your emotional state, and what you're focused on. And then you get this filtered reality, which is what you perceive as being real. That's what we argue about. Well, no, it was this. No, it was that. Well, really, you had different filters going on. You're both right from your own filtered reality perspective. Arguments are almost always about different perceptions of reality. So it's a really important thing to understand that what we perceive is not a fixed set reality, that the person sitting next to us isn't necessarily perceiving the same reality we are. They don't hear the same things we hear. They don't see the same things we hear. Their focus is different. If we just know this, we could start getting along so much better because we would have deeper conversations. So this is a really critical point. When you look at traditional employee engagement. There's a variety of things that they encourage employers to do and encourage managers to do. And one is positive feedback frequently. Negative too, but positive feedback frequently. And the same scenario works with negative feedback too. So let's say this morning you gave a presentation at work, and maybe you hate giving presentations, maybe you love them, but you just didn't feel like you did a good job today. Whatever it is, you think you did a lousy job. And so you tend to be self-critical, so all morning you've been kind of beating yourself up about how you did on that presentation. And here your boss comes bebopping in and says, "Hey, Larry, you did a great job on that presentation." And you don't believe it. So this new input comes in, and whoops, it can't go through because it's inconsistent with your core belief. So it's going to bounce off. And there's a lot of different ways your brain is going to interpret that. It may think, oh, the boss is trying to make me feel better. Ah, that's nice of her, but it's not working. So it's kind of thinking the boss isn't being honest with me because I didn't do a good job. The boss is saying I did a good job, but I didn't, and I know I didn't. I've been beating myself up all morning. I wouldn't be beating myself up if I did a good job, right? Or you're thinking, oh, she's trying to butter me up because she wants me to do it again. I got to get a new job. I don't want to do that ever again. That was so painful. And so when you give an employee a compliment, even if from your perspective it's authentic and positive, if they don't believe it, they don't accept it. It bounces off and goes out into left or right field, and it doesn't increase employee engagement. Now do you see why traditional employee engagement things aren't working? And they say one of the other things is be authentic. Well, if I believe that employee did a good job and I'm given an authentic compliment, but the employee doesn't agree with my opinion about them doing a good job, they're not going to read that authentic compliment as authentic, are they? No. So it still doesn't work. And then, of course, you have people who are too uncomfortable in their own skin to even be authentic as managers. So you've got that issue going on with that too. So this is a really critical thing. Now let's say that the employee didn't do a good job, but they think they did. Maybe they have a different standard of good. And so you try to counsel them and try to get them to do better next time. But they think they did a great job. Do you think they're going to hear you? Or is it going to bounce off and, oh, she's just trying to make sure I don't get a raise or something because I know I knocked that out of the park and she should, give me a good raise because I did a great job on that project. Well, if you're not communicating with the same belief structure, the same standards, it's going to get all chaotic. So the new evidence-based theory of emotions has a growing body of literature in the scientific journals. I have been using the new interpretations for a decade now. And when I first started using them, my life started getting so much better. Emotions actually make sense when you use the new definitions of what they mean and how to respond to them. And these are some of the researchers that have published different perspectives about basically all confirming that this new theory of emotions is accurate and has overturned the old stuff that was setting us down the wrong direction. So let's talk about cooking a chicken. Let's say you've never cooked a chicken before and you have company coming. So you get this cookbook out and it says to cook the chicken to 120 degrees. And you do that, and then you put it on the table and you're serving your guests raw chicken because the cookbook had a misprint. It's supposed to be 160 degrees. Well, that's basically what happened with emotions. Almost everybody who's alive today thinks that other people can make them feel how they feel. They think that an emotion they feel, let's say you have some I don't know, somebody's living a lifestyle that gives you negative emotion when you think about it, you think that is a judgment about their lifestyle, saying that their lifestyle is wrong, when reality is it's telling you that you should be looking at what they're doing in a different way. It's not your life. Let them live their life. If that works for them, let them live it, is what it's telling you. It's not telling you that you should butt into somebody else's life and tell them how they should live their lives. And we do that all the time. Even fringe groups do that. Um, I was in a park one day and this group of goths were there, the dark hair, dark music, dark lipstick, all that stuff, dark black fingernail polish. Anyway, they're there and they are arguing that this other person isn't a true goth because he also likes country music. Who cares? Why do they have to? Here they are, this fringe group, and yet they're trying to narrowly define what it means to be them. I see that another fringe group is the polyamory community, where, polyamory, where they have multiple partners, but it's up front and out in the open. It's not hidden and secretive and all that sort of thing. And if you start, I've had some clients in that community, and there are people in that community who will say that you have to make your relationship agreements like this and get mad when people do it differently. They're already fringe, 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 and yet they're trying to define and dictate to other people how to live their lives. It's just absolutely amazing that we do that. And it's because we think we should have this ability to tell other people how to live their lives, when really what we need to do is live our own life the best we can. Okay, so the purpose of emotions is to guide us towards self-actualization. And negative emotion is like those little bumps on the road saying, hey, you're getting off your path. If it feels good, especially if you have a long-term perspective, you're moving, thinking, speaking, and acting in the right direction. Keep going. You're on your path. Negative emotion does not mean something is wrong. It means to stop. Is there a different way to perceive this? It's telling you that you're not perceiving whatever it is you're focused on in the best possible light that you could perceive it for your own best interest. It's not worried about that other person's best interest. It's worried about your own best interest. Our emotions are selfish. They guide us towards our goals. They don't guide you. If you want to be an astronaut, they don't guide you to be an oral surgeon. If you want to be an oral surgeon, your emotions don't guide you to be an astronaut. They guide you to what you want. They're selfishly focused on what you want. Self-actualization of you, not the best of everybody in humanity. What is best for you? So if it feels best, it is best. It has the lowest stress, the best mental and physical health, the best cognitive abilities, and the highest intrinsic motivation. Employees want to feel better, they just don't know how to do it. So increasing employees' beliefs about their value and worth. Well, guess what? If you teach them about this new theory of emotions, and then they think a self-critical thought, and they know that when they're thinking a thought that feels negative, that they should stop, think, and do, and then come up with a better feeling thought, they'll say, oh, wait a minute. When I criticize myself, I don't feel good. What kind of better thought can I come up with about myself that would feel better? And it will guide them to healthy self-esteem, which goes all the way back to core self-evaluations that are good. So that takes it all the way back and around. Now this chart, you all have the handout. I've put emotions into zones because behaviors and emotional state go hand in hand. And you could do this. This is engagement behavior. You could do this with criminal behavior. You could do this with teenage behavior. You could do it with student behavior, because behavior and emotional state are intrinsically linked. And so when they're up there in these happy zones or the hopeful zone, they're engaged, and that's really where you want people to be. And then The worse it gets, the worse the behavior gets. And you can read that. I don't need to read it to you. And the zones are separated by degree of a sense of empowerment. The less empowered someone feels, the lower the zone. The more empowered they feel, the higher the zone. So remember, all communication is translation. And here we have the cans, and I do have this purchased one. I just grabbed the wrong slide with the sample. Uh, so what you say isn't what they hear. It's filtered by a lot of filters, but emotional state, beliefs, focus, and expectation. And then they get the personal perception. So have you ever given somebody a compliment and they thought it was a slur? Or given somebody a slur and they interpreted it as a compliment? That's their filtering process. And then what they say isn't what you hear. So dig deeper. If something seems to be going off, pay attention to how it feels. If somebody says something and your emotional response is negative, say, maybe that's a hint. Maybe I'm not interpreting what they said in the way they intended it. Let me ask questions. Let me get clarity. So that is basically, in a nutshell, core self-evaluations, 27 to 40% of employees' job satisfaction, engagement is determined by that.